Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Paul Lamine, IT Disciple. Whatever you choose to go is fine with me. And today we're going to talk about how I studied for and passed the CompTIA Server Plus. If you're looking to pass the CompTIA Server Plus, then this video might just be for you. So make sure you stick around. If you do like the video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. If you do want to see awesome videos like this all the time, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything. This channel is about breaking stuff. It's about fixing stuff. It's about failing and then figuring out why we fail and then trying to get past that. It's about anything and everything that have to do with tech and IT, like someone like me that's trying to go up the IT ladder. So make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want to see someone struggle to go up the IT ladder. So definitely hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification so you don't miss a thing. With that being said, let's go ahead. Let's get started. Let's talk about this bad boy. Okay guys, so the first thing we're going to talk about as always is the book that I use for the Server Plus. So this is the book that I use to study for the Server Plus. I will include the link in the description box below for those of you guys that do want to buy it. It's a pretty good book. As always, I love books that go according to the exam objective, and this one was no different. Fun fact, while I was studying for this, I was actually sick. So like when I was sick, I will pick up my book when I feel a little bit better and I'm like, oh, and just going through it. The struggle is real, but we gotta get the certificates no matter what, right? So yeah, but anyways, this is the book that I used to study for the certificate. I did took the SK004. There's the SK005 out now. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video when we talk about the website and different other components that I use or different other things that I use to study for the exam. But I did study, I used the study for the SK004, not the SK005. Something to keep in mind. I think that version is going to be retired in December of this year. So that's something to keep in mind. But this is the book that I used for the exam. It's a pretty good book. It's a pretty nice book. It is pretty well put together. It's right according to the exam objective. There were some mistakes, and I'm not my first language is not English, so I was able to tell there is a mistake in the book itself. So that's something that I had to look past because there's not much material for the SK004. That was a struggle for me, trying to find material for the SK004, trying to find good books for the SK004. And this was the only one that I could find that had a really good review that go exactly according to the exam objective. Because when I normally buy them, I go to Amazon and I look inside, kind of like the preview feature of it, and try to see, hey, does this go according to the exam objective? And it does a pretty good job of going according to the exam objective. And it was a really good book. It was a really, it was an easy read for me because I'm quite familiar with servers. But one of the things that I wanted to make very clear, or one of the things that I want to make very clear, is that the whole certificate itself, it's not so much focused on services. It's not so much focused on understanding like the internal, well, not so much the internal, like the service part of the server. Like, hey, what does a DNS do? Hey, what does a DHCP do? Hey, how do you set up and configure group policy to do specific things? Or an example of trying to do something with group policy or trying to use different services on the server. It talks about them a little bit. It get you to understand different part of like server management and try to understand what those servers are capable of, but it doesn't go into detail about like, hey, this is DNS and this is like the nitty gritty that you need to know about DNS. It's kind of like very top level. Hey, this is what it does. Let's go back to server hardware, right? So it's very focused on server hardware. It's very focused on getting you to understand the way servers are internally, how to take them apart, how to put them together, what are some of the things that you have to look for, what really makes a server work in terms of like, hey, you turn it on, it's on, but what really goes on before it turns on, that kind of thing. So it touched based on a lot of the physical part of a server, but not so much like the technical part. Let's just say that the technical part of understanding the services in the server, it doesn't go into that much detail about it. But anyway, this is the book that I use. Great book, easy read. For those of you guys that are already familiar with servers, this is going to be a breeze. It just going to talk about, for those of you guys that have played around with servers a lot, it's going to talk about different components. It's going to talk about different things. Even when I was taking the test, I was going through the test and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I know that. Oh, yeah, of course I know that, because I played around with servers a lot. I have a server here. I have servers on-prem at my job. I know that everything is moving to the cloud right now, and that's the case from even my job itself. But the ability to be able to understand how a server works in case you want to work for like a data center, that's very vital. So for those of you that work at a data center, for those of you guys that have to kind of play around with servers, because people now always talk about how everything is moving to the cloud, but the truth of the matter is somebody somewhere, somehow, some technician is playing around with the servers, playing around with the servers that provide the cloud for everybody else, right? So if that's the route that you want to go, you want to work on a data center, this certificate is a great certificate to have, because it teaches you a lot about understanding the components that you need to understand about managing a server. That allows you to manage a server a lot more better. But anyway, that's the book that I use for it. So now let's go ahead and talk about some of the other materials that I use to study for the Server Plus. Okay, guys, so let's take a detailed look at the exam itself, some of the other materials that I use beside the book. We're going to talk about the book again a little bit here, but let's go ahead and dive into the whole thing and see some of the materials that I use some of the other materials that I use to study for the exam other than the book. So the first thing we're going to look at, as always, is the exam page. So this is the exam page. For those of you guys that want to take a look at it, I will include the link in the description box below. Let's talk about a couple of things. So the SK004, which is the one that I took, which is this guy right here, it's going to retire December of 2021. Now, when the SK005 is going to take over. So now when they say retire, they don't necessarily mean that you're going to have to retire. If you have the SK004, you're going to have to take the SK005. No, one thing about this exam, as I said earlier, the exam itself is good for life. So a lot of these exams, if you've been in IT for a while, you know a lot of the exams, when you take them, you need to kind of renew them after 3 years. Most of them after 3 years. Some of them have a little bit of a lengthy time. Some of them have like 2 years. Some of them have like 3 years. For the most part, most of the exams that I've taken, you have to renew them. Or most of the exams that I have, you have to renew. Most of the certificates that I have, you have to renew them like around that 2 to 3 year time. So for this one is kind of like a good for life kind of exam. If you take it, you pass it, you don't have to renew it. And I think a lot of things factor into that. One, because it's servers don't change that much. But also, a lot of the day-to-day IT is starting to move to the cloud anyways. So a lot of people don't get to play with servers that often. A lot of people don't have kind of like that on-prem kind of setup. I have been fortunate enough to have something like that, and I've been fortunate enough to play around with a lot of servers. But nowadays, a lot of people just start off straight up like cloud, kind of just go from there. So they don't get to touch a lot of servers and things like that. So, and the servers don't change that much either. So that's probably why it's kind of like a lifetime thing, good for life kind of certificate. So if we scroll down a little bit, you can see that July, this one came out 2015. This is the one that I took, the SK004. The new one is already out. This one is going to be available till December of this year. And this one is already available. So if you want to study for it now, I don't think there's that much material, because even finding material for this to study for it was a bit of a headache. it was quite challenging to find material for it. Thanks to IT Pro TV, I had a good course for it. So that was good there. But it was hard to find material for this. I don't think that there's that much material out for this one yet, but we're going to take a look at it. It's 100 questions, maximum of 100 questions. You're going to have it's a maximum of 100 questions, but I don't think that necessarily, I can't remember how many questions I had. They're not going to give you 100 questions. Most likely, they're going to give you like performance-based questions and some other questions, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a mixture. 90 questions, maximum of 100. There you go. So maximum of 100, but you have about 90 questions and performance-based questions included in it. Multiple choice, and of course, I did a performance-based question, 90 minutes. So you have 1 minute for each question. They kind of highlight some of the things that you need to know here. You don't necessarily, if you play with servers a lot, you don't necessarily need to have the A+. I do have the A+, but you don't necessarily need to have the A+ to go take it. If you played around with servers for several years or several months, you should you should be able to read up on it and try to understand some of the concept and be able to pass the exam. The exam, of course, is $338, which is quite expensive, like a lot of the other exams. And of course, if you scroll down, there's the bundle. Of course, if you want the retake voucher, if you want more stuff, you pay more. But for one voucher and just the voucher itself is $338. And like always, you can go to the CompTIA Academy website and get a discount on this. So as far as the website page go, that's pretty much all you get for it. So moving on to the exam objective. Now, this is the SK005 and this is the SK004. Again, I took the SK004, but I want to kind of compare the two a little bit for those of you guys that are going to take the SK005. Of course, if you want to take the SK004, you have till December, which I think is way more than enough time to study for it. But again, that's just me. I don't know what other people have going on in their life, right? But anyways, this is the SK004, server architecture, server administration, storage, security, network, disaster recovery, troubleshooting. One of the things that I found about this exam, like I said about the, like I said when I was talking about the book that I used to study for it, it's very hardware focused. It's not so much like services like DHCP service or this service or that service or this service. Like how do you really get needy and greedy like in there in terms of the services on the server themselves? They do talk about them, but they talk about them in a higher, like, well, I don't want to say in a higher level because a higher level means that they talk about they talk about them and then I kind of like just kind of like touch on them a little bit, like, hey, this is what a DHCP service is and this is what it does, but they don't really go into too much detail about it. Or hey, this is what a DNS service is and this is what it does, but they don't go into an extreme detail about it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. That's what I found about this exam. If it's one thing that was disappointing to me, I wouldn't call it disappointing, but if it's one thing that I feel like they could have touched on a little bit more, is to go in depth, like really in depth about the services, but they did not. They just kind of cover it. And CompTIA is kind of like, you know, it, it's not specific to one vendor. So it's kind of, they have to cover as much as they can about servers. So that's why they just kind of like, hey, these are the things that we feel like you need to know about a server. Here you go. So it doesn't go into too much detail about things. Even troubleshooting, they kind of focus on troubleshooting the hardware part of things as well, not so much the services, servers, and all that stuff. They do talk about a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but it's not too like kind of hands-on in terms of like services and the programs on the server itself. It's very hands-on in terms of the physical part of the server and understanding different components of the server and things that you need to know in that regard. So this is the outline for the SK004, which is the one that I took. And then this is the SK005, a little bit shorter, but it seems as if they're moving towards server hardware installation and management. Pretty same. They did talk about installation on the SK004 management. Let's see. Maybe they're moving towards, because that's good. So maybe this new one, the management part, they're moving towards like kind of really understanding the services. So maybe that's good. So they have this part here. The management part seems to be new, so maybe they're moving towards that. So that's a good news there. Server administration, same thing there. Security and disaster recovery. I can't say that. Disaster recovery. Disaster recovery and security, they kind of bundle that together and make that as one. Troubleshooting, of course, they have troubleshooting here as well. So pretty much some of the same concept. So like I said, for the most part, you can see that they're very heavily focused on like understanding the physical part of the server. I think this certificate, as I said earlier, is much more geared towards people that want to work at a data center or try to understand what a server does in terms of like different components of the server. So you know how to troubleshoot it and fix it if something goes wrong, the physical part of it. And of course, if you want to be much more granular and say, hey, I want to understand the services, that kind of, you're going to have to move to like maybe a Microsoft specific certificate to be able to get that there. But for this one, they just kind of trying to get you to understand what a server is and what it does and how to take it apart and kind of put it back together, that kind of thing. So you have different components here. It teach you about what a 1U or 2U or 4U server. It teach you about all of these things that you need to know about different server architecture. It teach you about server administration. So as I said here, it talks about a lot of the stuff here, BIOS and UEFI configuration, but it doesn't go into like in-depth kind of configuration, but it teaches you about the basics and some of the things that you need to know. And it touched a little bit too about kind of like a Linux server. Here and there you see it touch a little bit about Linux servers and things like that, but it's not so much focus on Linux server. It talks about it, but it doesn't really dive in depth into Linux server and all that stuff. So different components here. Not much different between the SK004 and the SK005. The management part, I think, that's the one different. Maybe they kind of, as I said, moving more towards teaching you how to manage it. And as I said, it was a struggle to find material for the SK004. But as always, IT Pro TV to the rescue. And this was helpful to me. I said it was a struggle to find material, but I went to IT Pro TV and they were like, we got you, man, we got it. If you need it, we got you. So this video course was pretty damn helpful. Don Pizzette, my Linux Plus certificate, he was the guy that was teaching the Linux course. Amazing teacher, man. This guy. This guy is also pretty much amazing teacher. A plus, security plus. He teaches it a lot. He covers a lot of those things. But Don Pizzette is a great teacher, man. I kind of enjoy his courses. So when I saw this and I saw that, hey, he's the teacher, that I was like, let's go. So yeah, pretty much go according to the exam objective, server administration, security, networking, and all this other stuff. So every component, every part of the exam objective, IT Pro TV kind of covered that step by step, which is pretty cool. It made my life so much more easier. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Definitely, if you're looking to try to get the book, IT Pro TV did a great job in terms of like covering all of the exam objective, everything that you need to know. Watch about 92% of it because again, I work with servers on a day-to-day basis. I've played around with servers a lot. I have a server sitting there over there that act as my type 1 hypervisor. For those of you guys that are not new to the channel, you've already seen it. And I've played around with it a lot. I've taken it apart, I've put it back together. I mean, I've done a whole bunch of stuff with servers. I'm quite familiar with servers, so um, I watch up to 92% of it. It's a 28 hour, 15 minutes video. So I pretty much watch all of it. Yeah. So I pretty much watch all of it. And then of course you do have the practice test and you have the virtual lab. The virtual lab, this is really cool. The virtual lab kind of really go hands-on in terms of like the service part of things. So the concept, the service part of things, the concept that you need to understand in terms of like what is a DNS, what is a DHCP, what is like group policy, that kind of thing. The virtual lab does a good job of covering all of the concept that you see here, all of the things that they talk about here. It does a good job at like kind of giving you that, hey, let's go practice it a little bit. So I'm going to click on it. Hopefully IT Pro TV don't sue me. But anyways, yeah, so as you can see, it has like a lot of things. When you click on it, it takes you to the lab. I don't want to launch the lab. I don't want to get into trouble there. But if you click on it, it takes you to the lab, and then the lab kind of outline all of the things that you can do to help you better understand it. I pretty much did all of the labs, even though I'm quite familiar with it. I don't miss anything, man. I take as much as I can get. And then of course the practice test. Again, this is why I love IT Pro TV, everything in one place. You have the practice test, you click on it, and it gives you the exam. So as you can see, I took it several times. That was my average score when I was taking it. I took it several times. So you get to practice a lot. You get to understand some of the questions that are gonna come in. It's a really good platform. I know that all of my exams I use IT Pro TV, but I use other places as well. But for this exam, I couldn't find anything else. I had to use IT Pro TV. So let's go back there. So anyways, IT Pro TV, great. They have a great course on the SK004. I don't know if they're gonna come out with the SK005. They don't have the SK005 yet, but again, you have till December to take it, so you have some time. So great place to look at if you want to take the SK004, which you have till December to take it, so you have a pretty long time to take it. I did try to find some courses on Udemy to try to see if I can go from there as well. I didn't find that much. I did find some courses, however, in what is it called? LinkedIn? Yeah. LinkedIn has a kind of like a learning platform, and they have a series of courses there that you can look at that teaches you the server plus part of things. You kind of break it down to different components. So if you're into that, you can go to LinkedIn and be able to search there for Server Plus, and they have something to cover it. For Udemy, it was just mostly like practice exams. I didn't see any course that have to do with Server Plus. This is what I was saying, that man, I was so grateful that um, IT Pro TV kind of like have this whole thing in one place, so it was easier for me. But with LinkedIn, I mean, with Udemy, it was more so practice test than anything. They didn't have any video course for it, which is sad. Hopefully, someone comes out with like a SK005 video course, because, for those of us that decide to take the Server Plus, I mean, it's kind of sad if you don't have enough money to pay for IT Pro TV. You have to pay for either LinkedIn or do something else, and you don't have um, like places like Udemy that have it, but other places have it too. So if something that you plan to go for, check LinkedIn. IT Pro TV is my #1 recommendation. If you do want to practice test, you can check over here. You can check at Udemy over here. So that's pretty much it, guys. I think we've covered the book. We've covered the exam objective. We've talked about the video material, the practice test, the lab that I used. And we've talked about some of the hard time that I have trying to find material for it. It was hard for me to find material for it, but I did find some materials for it. IT Pro TV helped a lot. The exam itself was pretty good. It was a good exam. I'm quite familiar with server, not everything in terms of services and all that stuff. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to take this exam, because I wanted to strengthen my understanding of not just like the services part of things, but the component part of things as well. And understand it is because when you understand something as a whole, it makes your life a lot more easier. And then it's one day at a time, all right? So it was a good exam. It was an interesting exam, and the plus is I don't have to renew it. It's I got it for life, so I can't complain there. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. That's pretty much it. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video. If you do want to see cool videos like this all the time, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I have a lot of big plans for this channel. I want to show you guys my struggles, because it's not only about coming here and talking about like, hey, I passed these exams. I do want to make this channel a little bit different in terms of like, I want you guys to actually see me go through all of the struggles that I have to go through to study for each and every one of these exams. I have a whole bunch of certificates that I have to take, especially this year. I'm planning to take like 3 more certificates, maybe 2, because the year is almost halfway. We're almost halfway through the year. But I'm going to come out with a video on Friday, next week Friday, that talks about the plan. That's actually what I'm going to call it, the plan, which is going to highlight the plan for the rest of the year. And I'm going to take you guys through every single process, the struggle, the not wanting to study, the not wanting to like do certain things, all that process. I want to take you guys through it, because I want everybody that's out there struggling like me to kind of walk their way up in IT later, to know that, you're not the only one struggling, to know that we all struggle to get this certificate. We all struggle to learn and to move forward. So it's going to be an interesting channel. So if you want to see all of those, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn your notification. And as always, thank you guys for watching. And do not forget to stay geeking. Peace.